Let me ask you, while you're doing that,
Yeah.
maybe it's, let me ask you about your guitar. You've been playing on the Smallmans for years now. What is it about those guitars that appeals to you so much?
Well, I first met Greg Smallman.
I know it's hard to answer questions in tune and listen.
Yep, no, I didn't want to leave too long a gap.
Right.
No, it's right. I first met him in about 1970, mid-70s, and he was a guitar maker. He wasn't very pleased with these guitars and wasn't even sure if he wanted to continue making. But he came to me one day, and I was very impressed with this because he came in, and I was a little bit flattered, obviously, because he said, I think you make... I love the sound you make on that guitar, and that guitar you play is like the best guitar. And the guitar I was then playing was by a great Spanish maker, Ignacio Fleta. And Greg Smallman came up and, he said, that guitar is really wonderful, and I love the way you use it. And what point is there for someone like me, he said, to make a guitar, because that, in a way, couldn't be better. What is it? And I thought this was terrific, because most guitar makers, most instrument makers, are really sort of, they're quite critical of other makers. They're not,
right.
they're not over generous,
Right.
And they're always full of themselves. and he wasn't. He started off from admiration of Fleta, who was his sons are still making, but by far the only true guitar maker in on the same level that you could count with the great violin makers of the past. Mm-hmm. And so he then said to me, we got into a conversation, and I said, I wanted to encourage him, you see. So I said, no, look, you really must carry on making, because, the guitar can always improve. There's always things about all instruments that people want to improve. And he said, well, what is it about the Fleta? And I said, well, the top string actually is quite hard work. It can be a little bit thin. It's very guitaristic, very guitar-y. It sounds very Spanishy, and it's lovely quality, but musically it's a bit thin, and it's very difficult to make singing melodies. And,
well, if I can butt in here, explain what you mean by Spanishy. What is that?
Well, I don't have another guitar here to show you it.
Okay.
But he. And I also said, the things I like about the Fleta are that it's got a lovely full bass. A lot of people used to find the Fleta a little bit too bassy. It's like saying a Steinway is too bassy on a piano, You don't have to play it loud.
Yeah.
Ordinary or typical Spanish classical guitars have a little bit of that percussive aspect to them. When you play loud, you get more attack, but not more note. It's quite a complicated thing to explain, actually, without another guitar here. But I could give you an example here, where, for instance, I'll take a chord. I don't want to blow your speakers up here, so I'll be a bit. But this is a chord that comes in a layer brow piece. I'm just going to play it now. I'm not going to move anything else in my hands except play louder. Okay? Often when you do that on a I'll say a typical Spanish type guitar, although it will sound substantially the same as that, the louder you get, you feel greater percussive attack, but you don't actually get a lot more body of note when you do it. It just becomes more of a rattle, and in a way that can be quite exciting. But if musically, it can be a bit of a problem, and it's indicative of the way the guitar is constructed. The Spanish fan strutting is quite a taut and springy kind of construction.
Well, isn't the in the Smallman it has that lattice bracing?
That's right.
Isn't that also very tight? Doesn't that make the top very tight?
Well, yes, but it's tight in a totally different way. It's tight, but it's very light. He has very, very thin cedar wood with carbon fiber reinforced lightweight struts. It is a lattice work, but it is so light, much lighter than the equivalent fan-strutted guitars, that the whole top works a little bit like a drum skin. So it's like if you put your hand in front of you, now, or you put two hands with the thumbs together and keep the thumbs together but wave the little fingers up and down, you would be a little bit like a conventional fan strut guitar. But if you take both hands and move your whole hand up and down, including the thumbs, you get an idea how the top of a Smallman guitar would work more. I'd like to return to one simple aspect of the kind of lattice bracing that Greg Smallman uses, and in fact in particular his guitars. The effect of it is not to do only with volume. It's a musical thing, the fact that you can use control of volume, loud and soft. It also means that you can play very, very quietly, and the sound sings more. So you can do... So it's not only a question of loudness, it's the gradation from loud to soft. And the same thing happens in tone colour. So when you go from near the bridge, which I'll do now, and go up towards the fingerboard, you get a constantly changing quality of sound. Now all guitars give you a sharp sound here and a dolce sound there. All guitars will do that as to where you're plucking the string. But typical of a Smallman guitar and this kind of construction is that you get a great variety between those points. It's like you have your mouth open and you're blowing smoke rings or something, and you're making different vowel sounds like A, E, I, O, U with your lips and your mouth. So it's a musical thing, and it's why ever since he's developed this in the early 1980s, I've played on Smallmans ever since.